Good. Thank you. It's a full table. This is nice to see. So we are going to open this meeting at 3. Well, I'll go off my phone, 3:30. We're going to call to order the Education Committee meeting on May 5th already, 2026. We are going to open by calling to order their land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the Ho'oholti of the Seashot and Hupecheset First Nations, and acknowledge that we also have schools located on the Ho'oholtis of Huu-ay-aht, Taloquia First Nations, and the Ukiulatha government. Before we get started today, I just have a couple of announcements to go through. First of all, we acknowledge with sadness the passing of Sukhwinder Manhas, who died suddenly on Thursday, April 16th. Sukhwinder was a dedicated education assistant in our district for 34 years. Over that time, he supported countless students from his early work with the Boys Project to his role at ADSS, where he helped guide students through work placements. He was known as a grounded, kind, and deeply caring individual who also mentored many young people beyond school setting through his role as a sensei at his local dojo. Sukhwinder's impact on students, staff, and families was profound, and his loss is deeply felt across our community. We hold his family, friends, and colleagues in our thoughts during this difficult time. We ask that we just take a quiet moment to remember Sukhwinder. Thank you very much. Today also marks Red Shirt Day, a day of awareness and remembrance for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Wearing red is a visible way to stand in solidarity and honor of those who are missing and to remember the lives that have been lost. It's also a call to action to listen, to learn, and to continue working towards justice, safety, and equity for Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people in our communities and across the country. Please join me in supporting Red Shirt Day. Thank you very much. We'll go through our agenda. Number 2, we're just going to approve our agenda that the Board of Education approved May 5th, 2026 Education Committee as presented. So moved. Greg? Second, Bray. Second, Bray. All in favor? Larry? Thank you. I don't know if we have any conflicts to declare here today. I think that we do. And we don't have any petitions or delegations. We're going to go straight down from unfinished business, emergent issues, to staff reports. So 7.1, Network of Inquiry, Indigenous Education Update with Danny Stone, Principal of Wickaninnish Community School, and Sandra McCauley, District Resource Teacher.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us here. Danny and I will do our best to keep things succinct. And do you like it up? Yeah, I would like it up. Yeah, please. Thank you. So you have the information sheet that was shared with you. So we will try our best not to reiterate anything there, but just to give you a little bit of an update. That Danny and I are the local network leaders, and the network has a very healthy participation in our district this year. So the network is like worldwide. It was sort of like based out of just a tiny little bit of the history. It was sort of based out of BC, coming from Linda Kaiser and Judy Halbert. You could go to the next slide, please. So the Network of Inquiry in Indigenous Education really is strong ties with Indigenous communities, not only across BC, but across the world. They have sort of this inquiry cycle called the Spiral, an inquiry that is the framework that teams, schools, districts are using to improve their own practice and instruction and what's happening in our communities and in our schools that better the outcomes for our students, like for student success. So another thing that the NOI does is they provide some grants for supporting case studies. And so we have 9 case studies in our district this year, across 8 different schools. They also provide some leadership, so some leadership amongst districts and across like leaders like ourselves, like Danny and I. So our role is to help our teams at each school with their own inquiry projects and bring them together so that they can collaborate and share ideas and share what they're curious about and what they're doing in order to improve their student outcomes and success. They also partner with some research companies and organizations, and then they host a symposium and multiple every year, which is actually coming up this weekend, and learning events, so like little learning bursts and different kinds of things across the year. So that's kind of like in a nutshell what the NOI does. Thanks, Paula. And so just a little bit about their impact. They have, right now, they've been around for about 25 years. They have over 1,000 different educators that are engaged in inquiry, which is sort of equivalent to about over 25,000 students that are impacted. And as I mentioned, they're international. So they do have teams in New Zealand, Australia, Hawaii, Latvia, Sweden, and actually, thanks to Danny, we have a team of 4 people that are visiting the symposium this weekend that are coming from Bermuda that she and I met while we were in Winnipeg this past summer for an assessment conference. They also, a goal coming forward is they would like to have about 100 different nature-focused schools in the next 4 years. That's kind of the next piece that they've been working on. And they have really been partnering with language speakers and elders across all different areas of our province and of course worldwide. So that's kind of like some of the things that they've been doing. Go to the next one. This is just a tiny little bit of sort of like that spiral. So this is a framework that, you know, we are using kind of like, I could speak personally, like in my own work, because I'm really familiar with the spiral. I've used it in other districts where I worked. And so it's kind of just become inherent in the work that I'm doing. Like I don't even really realize that I'm using it. But kind of walking people through this framework is really, really helpful for any sort of work that you're doing, whether you're just a classroom teacher, you're working together like as a system, as a school. We use this spiral like in our learning services like team. We're using this spiral of inquiry with the secondary PLC. We are really focusing, Danny and I have really made a conscious effort this year with our teams, because we have many teams that have people that have been working with us for the last couple of years in our district, to really do a little bit more conscious effort on teaching some of those actual, like working within each of those sort of steps. Because it isn't about, the inquiry is not about coming to the table with a final goal. Like it's not like, I want the grant money for X. That's not the sense of this. That's great. Like those are equally valid. But the spiral is really about coming from grassroots and coming from what do you notice and what do you notice with your learners? And what are you noticing, or what are you noticing within your own practice or your own school or whatever your context is? And coming from that scan with some questions of curiosity and inquiry, and then kind of thinking about like, what if we tried this? And it gets messy and it doesn't always work. And there's pieces around that where, you know, you're kind of always checking and looking back. But it's just a really wonderful, beautiful framework that I think is really supportive in making change and celebrating the great work that we already do. We go to the next one, I think, and I'll probably be turning it over to Danny now, who's joining us virtually. And she's
Hi, everyone. Great to see you virtually. And just wanted to thank Sandra for her great work and leadership in the NOI project, and just a big thank you to everyone for their support of it. I met Judy and Linda when I was doing my master's, and they definitely got me excited about learning again using the inquiry and being able to see how it can help to increase your ability to to move your practice forward in any way. And so when we are doing those scans and we're noticing those things and focusing in, it just is a really great way to be able to start to make a plan and to move through that learning. And I love that it puts anyone who's using it back into the seat of as a learner. And it's been really awesome to see our 9 teams this year in that learning space and to see that, them move through the spiral and support them through that. So we're just going to share a little bit about each of our teams and what they've been working on. So at E.J. Dunn Elementary, they're looking at using Indigenous oral storytelling in Reader's Theatre and how does that impact literacy and engagement. And so for each of our teams, they kind of did a bit of a scan. They saw something and then they've had a piece that they maybe were passionate about or wanted to learn more about and have been kind of moving in that direction. And, Sandra and I will check in with them. We'll sit down and kind of talk through some of those pieces using the spiral as kind of that framework to move them through those pieces. And I think like the piece that we often come back to is that like learning isn't a straight journey, that it's okay, that it's kind of messy and moves all over. And it's awesome to see our educators really digging into that. Next slide, please, Paula. We are excited to see Bamfield join us again this year. And it was really interesting. They were noticing that their kids were really not really using their library in the way that they wanted them to. And so they kind of had this inquiry around how could they increase that student literacy engagement and improve their attendance by involving students in redesigning our school and classroom libraries to reflect their interests, cultures, and voices. And Robin shared a few of these photos that the kids have kind of started looking at. What are the books? What are the puzzles? What are those other pieces that are going to engage them in some learning that can happen within a library space? And so this is one of their photos. And next slide, please. Emily Comtois at Wickenish Community School was trying to partner up with another teacher at UES. It didn't really work out that way this year, but her project has been really looking at that intentional shared place-based experiences and intentional audiences and what that impact will have. Her hunch is that it will have a positive impact on students' engagement and in the quality of their writing. And so they've spent a bunch of time doing a lot of different experiences together. So on the left, they have the students worked with the land-based learning crew from USS and designed their own fishing rods and went out and did some fishing off a crab dock. And then this is another experience where they went out as one of our classes who went out and did whale watching together, and just an example of some of the writing that she's been seeing. And so she's definitely been seeing that increase, and that's been really fueling her to look at what are those other ways that she can create those experiences together. Next slide, please. Suma how could embedding daily use of Nuu-chah-nulth language in classroom routines and activities support primary students' sense of connection to community? And it's been really awesome to hear Lori Martel just share some of how her kids have been using Nuu-chah-nulth to be able to share the announcements and their sense of connection to their school community and the ways that they like to be able to contribute that learning. Next slide, please. John Howitt with Chris Harper has been looking at helping students learn and share local Indigenous knowledge, language, and stories through student-led social media content and creation. And what's really great is just seeing how our educators are responding to the students who are in front of them and to their needs that they have in their classrooms. And so one of the things that Chris noted was that the kids were really interested in being able to share their stories, but that they didn't really like hearing their own voices. So he was like looking at how can they use digitized voices in different ways to be able to help kids feel more confident in being able to do that kind of speaking and sharing of knowledge. Next slide, please. Ukilit Elementary has continued on with the NOI project that they kind of started last year and now have kind of dug in a little bit deeper, looking at that language and literacy development, self-regulation, engagement, and connection with increased outdoor play. And they're really focusing on oral storytelling. And so it's been great to see how just starting with one class and how that's grown. And now they've got kind of a small team working around them for that. And just the last slide that we have just kind of speaks about the spiral of inquiry is designed to build curiosity and to change the experience of learners. And one thing that Judy and Linda always kind of say is their goal with the network is to always have all students walk across the stage with dignity, purpose, and options and leave more curious than they came. And so it's definitely something that I know that Sandra and I feel really passionate about. And we just really appreciate the board's support and, you know, James's support and the rest of our senior leadership's team. That's it for our slides, Paula. Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Any questions? I'm going to open up the floor. Yes, trustee Craig.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you to Sandra and Danny for taking the lead with this. It's really exciting to read through all of this, now see pictures again. To see the involvement and engagement, both by students and teachers, and having that extra support and camaraderie, I think has really made a huge impact. And kids with their smiles. So I really want to thank this process. I think it's been an excellent process.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Trustee Sneddon?
Is the natural focus schools, nature focus schools, what's that?
So that's like, the NOI, like, part of their network, they've had sort of like, I would say roots or branches more of different kind of projects that have morphed over the years. So one that they did, in collaboration with Jana Fox and Joe Crona was, they worked with, secondary schools around Indigenous, literacy,
Transitions, yeah.
numeracy, and transitions. Yeah, transitions, and then literacy and numeracy with elementary schools. They've been working for the past 3 years on a social emotional learning one. So the next one that's sort of like been coming up has been like nature-based schools. So that would be like learning that's happening outside, like learning from the land, connected to like play and story, like you're seeing from some of the things that Ashley and Chantel have been doing at UQLit, with a real focus on connecting kids more to nature. And so those schools, in all of those projects, they have leads, and those leads have they're sort of a commitment to like a 2 or 3 year process through the NOI, that if your team joins that and you're curious about it, you are committing to a 2 or 3 year group that is going to like meet regularly, and you're going to work on your inquiries in your own spaces, but you're connected through the province. So that we'll learn more about that as Danny and I are have been invited to the NOI this weekend, later this week, Thursday and Friday. We'll learn more about like where that's in. It's kind of its infancy stages at the moment.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I have two, I'm going to go trustee Orr and then trustee Ransom.
Thank you very much, through you, Chair. My question, well, first of all, this is great. I love all the projects. I love the how it is teacher led and really grassroots, and you can really see the difference. My question is just regarding that there was 9 projects this year, and I'm wondering if all schools were asked to participate, and if there was any specific barriers as to why they couldn't, or if there is anything to do to help that. Thank you.
Danny, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think like we put it out to everybody, and sometimes, you know, it comes from like word of mouth of like they've tried a NOI project and they're interested about it, and so they want to know a little bit more about it. Often we'll like tap somebody and say like, hey, you know, that sounds really cool. That sounds like a NOI project. Let's work together and be able to kind of support you with that great learning. And so there's, you know, depending on how familiar people are with the NOI, or if they feel like that's the kind of vehicle they want to do their learning in, because it really is just about like trying to support them using the spiral to kind of as that framework to go through. And so it's been interesting to work with different teams who kind of at first were maybe not as familiar with the inquiry, and then they start to kind of get to it and they're like, oh yeah, now I'm noticing that I'm doing it in my own classroom quite often, or that it just becomes a way of being. And it was interesting, like meeting with one of the teams recently in one of our check-ins, and they were like, oh, you could see they all got online and they just looked like tired and like they'd had a big day. And at the end, they were like, you know, every time I get on one of these like meetings, I'm always like, meeting. And then after, I'm always like elated and feel like so much more energized. And so that's the hope, is that learning is going to energize them and help them to kind of share that with their colleagues. And so, of course, we would love to have a team from every school And we know there's great things going on at all schools. It's just whether or not they feel like the NOI is the right kind of framework for them in those places.
That answer your question, Trustee Orr?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much, Danny.
Thank you. Trustee Ransom?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, just a question about the Acadians reading, and I apologize, my sound was not working during that presentation on Wood Elementary's project. Can I have a little bit of explanation of that reading assessment tool?
Oh, yep. Steph is probably going to be talking about that a little bit in a couple of minutes when she talks about the literacy update for the district. But I can tell you that in a nutshell, that's a tool that the district has chosen that's free, that our primary teachers are kindergarten this year and then moving forward have been are going to be using as a screener to just kind of identify students that are in need of some specific skill development towards their reading.
Thank you. Just to follow up, if I could, Chair. So is that in all the elementary schools?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And Harley, did you have a question?
Oh, yes. Since the early 80s, I've been involved with funding applications, assessment, recommendations, contracting and monitoring, and in particular with Health Canada, whenever it was something such as, I'll give Aboriginal Head Start as an example, it was clear the applicant had to identify that any initiatives were driven by the community and community involvement from start to finish. And I'm wondering if you could tell me about that process with what you're doing here, because I don't see a lot of Indigenous faces, but I'm glad that this is happening. So I'm
Yes.
curious about that aspect.
Right. So there's two folds probably to that, which Danny and I can kind of riff off each other, and James even could help answer some of those questions if I'm not succinct. But for the NOI specifically, so the requirements are that you are putting in an inquiry project. So we gather people together. They explain what's going to happen. There is a process. So it's not necessarily an application, but there is like criteria that they go through, and I have them here. So there's criteria that they go through. They have to, the expectation is that they are meeting with Danny and I and checking in a few times a year. There are they have to gather some data in like sort of formal ways, and there's some data that they need to gather in like more like a street data kind of way. So they need to, have some evidence of what's been going. And sometimes, like I said, it gets messy. It doesn't necessarily go the way that they were thinking it was going to go, like they pivot partway through. And then they do have to ask students questions, like they need to ask students 4 really critical questions. So, are there more than one person in this building who believes that you will make a difference in the world and like who you are? Can you name, help me out with those ones, Danny.
So they're asked, part of it is that when you write up any of the learning you do.
Yeah. And then, so there's some criteria from the NOI, and then at the end, because the NOI does do a little bit of a thank you, gratitude donation towards people's project that goes to the school. And so it goes, that funding comes through to the school for their projects. But in order for that money, they have to do like a case study, like final report kind of a thing. And that is published on the NOI site. So you can go to noi.ca and you can read all this case studies from the last 10 or 15 years that they've been publishing them there on their site. So there is some criteria. And for us as a district, same sort of like it kind of is hand in hand. I've sort of answered some of those things where we're expecting people to, participate and be part of those meetings. There's some criteria sitting there. And then we also do a celebration, which will be at the end of this month. And administrators from each school are also a part of the team. So it's really important that the administrator is part of the inquiry that is happening at their school, and that you're not working in isolation. So it's not like one teacher, that there is a team that administrators are part of are part of that. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Actually, it gives me a description of the process, but what I was
Okay.
asking is what Indigenous involvement is. And in an example, were there Indigenous parents, were there Indigenous students, and Indigenous working group committee? Was there First Nation? I'm not hearing that. And
Oh, I
maybe
see.
it
what you
is.
mean. Sorry.
Well, yeah, that's what Indigenous
No,
means to me.
I didn't understand. That's my fault. I didn't understand your question.
So I
yeah.
might answer a little bit of that. So one of the things that Judy and Linda and the NOI really emphasizes is that each of the projects should really be looking through that lens of the First Peoples principles of learning. And so that's one of the things that when they're looking at your project, that's a piece that you should definitely be adhering to and should be a piece of each educator's learning. And they definitely encourage any of those people who are doing a NOI project to be looking with that lens about how can they include those Indigenous students, because they'd love to be able to see us increasing our ability to have those students really thrive and shine. And so many of the ways that people are doing that is like, for instance, in Chris Harper's project at John Howitt, they work alongside Iris Sanders, who is their Indigenous support worker, who is supporting that project, and they work together on that together to know that they're moving forward in a good way. In the past, with different NOI projects we've had at our school, we've had our elder and residents be a part of that project, as well as our partnership with Colloquiate First Nations, to be able to kind of talk about. In the past, one of the projects we did was around how we moved together in helping our students transition into kindergarten. And so we really looked at what did they have to say was working well in the community and what was not. And so for each project, there may be elements of it that they're engaging with their unique community. And that is definitely something that the NOI holds up. There are also pieces where it is like a specific targeted group. And in those cases, that would be a learning that you would definitely be doing alongside your Indigenous partnerships. So those would be things that we'd be looking specifically, that if you were going to sign up for one of those kind of projects, you'd be looking to really have that strong relationship so that it's coming from a place where Nation is really driving what they'd like to see some of that learning to look like. Does that kind of help?
That helps. And again, just to refer back to, I think Health Canada is the best example I can give, because when there are programs like CPNP, CAPC, Canada Action Plan for Children, Canada Prenatal Nutrition Program, it was required to have an Aboriginal component. And the thing I liked about how the regional director looked at that was, if an applicant didn't have that in the application, they'd respond and say, well, thank you for your application. It looks good. It looks complete. It's, however, you do some work in this area. It wasn't criticizing it, but it gave them an opportunity to rethink and approach it in a better way. And that's all I'm looking at here. If there's a title of it being an Indigenous program, I think it's fair to have an expectation that there's going to be some Indigenous visual representation of it throughout. So this helps. So thank you.
I think those are great things for Sandra and I to take back. Obviously, because the NOI is a large network, it means that we need to make sure that those localized groups are really being consulted. And I think that that's great feedback that we would, as network leaders, we can definitely take back to them about that process of how are they encouraging those relationships between those local Indigenous knowledge keepers and our teachers and learners who are working through that spiral.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Sandra. That's brilliant work that you're all doing. Thanks for all the work that you're putting into this. We're going to continue with our meeting. If there are no more questions, you're welcome to stay. You can stay? Yay, Danny, you're welcome to stay as well. We do well work there. You do what you like, Danny. Thank you very much. We move down to 7.2, the Bridge Program, with Director of Instruction and Inclusive Education, Michelle Bennett.
Thank you. I just would like to introduce Vice Principal Heidi Holman. She's Vice Principal at ADSS. She's joined us, so she's going to assist me. She's responsible for this program in school. Okay, so I've given you an information sheet that's given you a little bit of the background of how Bridge came to be. and kind of what the program goal is. We put together a PowerPoint presentation with some data in there and some pictures for us to look at. We'll sort of talk to each slide and then answer questions at the end.
Absolutely.
All right, so you can see in the very,
No, I'm sorry. I didn't share, sorry to interrupt you.
I can see you're doing something.
I thought it shared, but then it didn't actually look like it was viewable for people online. There you are. I think that should work.
So a little bit of the backstory around the Bridge program. It was born out of the district looking at junior grades in our alternative school and having concerns around junior students in the alt program and having a low return rate when junior students, grade 8s and 9s were going to 8th Avenue, we were not seeing a lot of students coming back. And so we were like, how do we keep some of these students in the main high school? Can we offer an in-house alternative program? Spoke with the high school administration team about what's possible as we were preparing to focus the alternate school on senior grades 10 to 12. And so what can we provide junior grades in the high school to support alternative programming, different setting, different kinds of student needs to be responsive to that and have them still advance through curriculum. So the high school team got together and they, I would say, planned this. And I think Heidi, maybe give the people a little bit about kind of the goal, which is around building relationships with ESAC, diversity, grit, and empathy, kind of what you guys were thinking about, what you wanted to, how you want this program to thrive.
So like Michelle said, I mean, it was looking at how to support some of our younger learners in a way that created that inclusion for all. I mean, we have certain programs in our building that help support kids, but we were missing the piece with noting that kids were maybe not coming to school as often. We were looking at concerns with mental health. We're looking at ways to support our students that had been through trauma. And we wanted to build a program that then connected them to our mainstream once we were able to bring them in to support them, build relationships. And so Bridge is bridging them from one program to our school. We wanted to make sure that those relationships were in place. So we were very clear on who we wanted in that classroom as educators. We wanted to make sure we had the support of some of the support staff in our building. And so we created this space that was quite large and was really focused on respecting their learning, understanding that there were going to be some diverse learners in our classroom, and that we were looking at ways to build resiliency, and that we were looking at this program through a trauma-informed lens. And this is what we came up with, a way to connect our kids to the building, because sometimes when we look at our transitions from 7 to 8, we already know that some of these kids are struggling to be in school. We already know that they're struggling to come to school. We already know that they maybe don't have the connections or that they need to thrive. And so this was our way to get them in the building, build those relationships, and then hopefully move them into a place within our building. And if not, then we could work on looking at the alternate senior program that we have.
So information, I think, because I think this has been asked of me before previously, it's some data. So the program was designed with the intention for grade 8s and 9s. The number of students that we've enrolled in Bridge over 2 years are 59 students. In the last year, which was the very first year of its running, we had 37 students. 13 of them only spent 1 year in the program. So that's important. So they would have spent for 24, 25. The 25, 26 year, we had 43 students so far this year. 22 of the students are in their second year. So they would have been last year and this year. And I'm just kind of trying to check my math here. Students in the first year, or 21 of those students are in the first year of the program, so they weren't in the grade 8 year, but they are in their first year. So maybe they're grade 9s in their first year, or maybe they're just in grade 8. So it's a blended cohort. We don't separate the grades. They work together. Yeah. So stats that we collected. So in conversation, because I think this is some of the identifiers for our students. So we've got 61% of the students that are in this program are Indigenous. 50% of the students have improved their attendance since they've been in the program, which is really important. I think, when we're finding kids that are disconnected from people and peers, it's very hard to get those individuals into a building. So when we have improved attendance, we can, I think, infer that they're connected to more people in the building. Maybe it's adults, maybe it's kids, but increase in attendance is a positive outcome. When we talk to our kids, they identify, there's 13% that identify as being LGBTQ plus identity. 25% of the students are receiving outside services, so that's outside of school services. So they have community supports in place, which is an important piece for our students that are struggling. 44% of our kids are reporting that they have income insecurity, and so there's with that comes with food insecurity and housing insecurity. 62% of the students in Bridge are on our lunch program that's offered by Nourish. 13% of students are in care. And we have 36% of students have been designated, so they have an IEP in place. So I think just to add, the first year of the program, we had 2 teachers and 1 support staff, 1 EA. This year we have 1 teacher and 1 EA. And so our plan is next year to have 1 teacher and 1 EA as well. That EA for the Bridge program, the first year was funded by the district, came out of separate funding. This year we asked them to fold it into their EA staffing. And next year, the district has committed to covering the EA costs outside of the EA allocation, so from a different funding source. To ensure that we have that in place for kids. We don't want, because EA staffing is calculated different for schools. I do want to add anything else before we move on to this? About the kids or about?
No, I just wanted to say that, so you mentioned that we have the 8s and 9s working together. They are more of an individualized program. We had the 2 teachers move to check in with some SD, well, actually Nanaimo district, had the alternate program there, and they learned about some of the ways that they were supporting their students in that district. And so they had some ideas about how they wanted to do things in class. And so we brought that back and we did that with our kids in our building, working with them more at a independent level. Where are they at? Where can we meet them? And how do we do their academics with them? This next year, it is going to be a little bit different with the way that we're set up. And so the 8s will be at a different time than the 9s. So it's going to be, I just wanted to kind of make that.
I think they're having, like, I think for the last years they've been in.
We're looking at, we're just trying to figure out the best way to support our students.
And I think so when we have kids that have been in the program in grade 8 and 9, we need to be, look at capacity building and what's their next step, because we need to have options for them after they're finished in their grade 9 cohort. They're in it for 2 years. So the data has been that 8% of those students have gone into the general population classroom schedule. 20% have gone into the general population schedule, but at a kind of a partial day, part-time. And I would think that might be just because of the life adversities that students are having to live daily with. We have used Bridge as a soft landing for some kids that may not have been, I would say, eligible or in a place for us to confirm CEDARS as a modified program, but 5% of the students we've taken from Bridge and moved them into CEDARS because that was the best solution for them based on the information we had about their their diverse needs and abilities and potentially disabilities, right? 6% of the students we moved into land-based learning because it was a good fit for them. And we are trying to manage like the age range that we have in our specialized programs. And so, and it could be that maybe a student landed in grade 8, we put them in Bridge, and they weren't ready to be in land-based learning. There needs to be some level of independence and maturity and ability to be interested and engaged in that program. So we have moved some students into land-based learning. And 16.9% of the students at Bridge have gone to 8th Avenue after they've been in the cohort from the Bridge program.
It's a very collaborative process as well. We talk to all of the supports and people that are connected with particular students, family, guardians, anyone that knows them well, the educators, obviously. And we start that process by making sure that everyone has had a chance to have their voice heard, as well, obviously, the students. And then that's sort of where we go from there. So it's not us just saying, okay, we think this is how you've been doing, this is what we expect. And so there's a lot of conversation, and it sometimes takes a lot of time to make those plans.
Yeah.
Decide.
I would
What
say
best
just from sitting on the alternative program screening, like chairing that, there's lots of conversations around the level of consultation that happens between the school and families, sometimes service providers, supports in the school, about what's the best fit for students. And so I do think, there's lots of conversations that are had to make decisions for best learning opportunities for students. Go to the next slide. So next year we have 21 students tentatively enrolled. And so Heidi, maybe just talk about why that's tentative right now.
Because it's a program where we don't want to say you have to be in this program and you're going to stay in this program. It is a program that we want to make sure that it's best fit. So as of right now, we have the conversations with the students from our elementary schools that obviously come to the high school. So we've had a lot of opportunity to talk to the families, students, and the supports and educators that work with these students. And so these grade 7 youth, they're coming to our building, and we're looking at trying to find the best fit for them so that they are comfortable and connected right away. So that's where tentatively comes, because as of right now, that's what we'd like for them. When we have tours at the end of the year, when things may have happened with that family, or parents have said, I'm thinking this might be a better fit. We always make sure we have those conversations before we make that a final call. And also we have some 8s right now that are moving into grade 9 next year who will still be in our program. That's what they want right now. That's where we have placed. That may change.
So I think I have an error on here. I think I said there was 2 teachers this year, but it wasn't. So it's incorrect.
We had some support though with Remedy.
Pardon me?
Support with Remedy though. So
Oh, did you? Okay, that's right. Slide. So just some frequently asked questions about Bridge. Do we get all this? Do we get questions like this all the time? I thought might be appropriate to answer these. So what do you do to support students in the program? And so we connect them with all the supports in the schools, the ISWs, the INSTs, mental health workers, the counselors. I think ADS has implemented outreach this year every Wednesday for students that may be falling off attendance in Bridge. They do outreach, like let's go out in community, find out where you are. How do we help you get back connected to the program? And so I think that's ongoing work. And I think we noticed that after the first year that, hey, we need to do a little bit of outreach in this program because this is a group of students that are struggling to connect. So they added outreach. ADAS comes in and presents regularly. I think the teacher, brings in what they, different kinds of service providers, takes them out of the school when he can. And so it's really about building, I think, relationships and connection and trust while working on skill building, which is what our grade 8s and 9s, we skill build from K to 9, actually students, we haven't brought counting credits yet. preparing them for grade 10, right? Working on those things and meeting them where they're at. So what kind of schedules do students have? I think we've talked about this lots. This is probably one of the biggest conversations we had in the beginning was, how many blocks are these students, how many blocks are they in this program? And I think ADSS advocated really strongly that we need to meet kids where they're at. So some kids will be in here all day. Some kids will have 1 block. Some kids will have 2 blocks. Some kids will have 3, but we need to provide what they need. And so we'll take that by individual student need. So they've tried really hard to honor that because different students are coming into this program with different needs and they have to meet them at that place. So, and I think that we have some students that are in classes and that will leave their class and go to Bridge just for a place where they, maybe that's a student that may not be fully enrolled in there, but they're in a class, but they can float out and be in that space, kind of an additional learning commons for them, I guess, so to speak, to give them support, and then they can float back into their mainstream class. So trying to be flexible for what kids need. But there's just splitting grades, yeah. So this year we're looking at splitting grades and 9, 7 to half day programs about that. So on the other half. Next slide. This is a referral process. So they do transition and articulation notes for grade 7s. I think ADSS works really hard to not use Bridge as the first place of placement. They have lots of other kinds of programs in place for grade 8s that need extra supports or more teacher contact. And so, but this is a place where they do talk about grade 7s coming in. And referrals for process through school-based teams, connection care team, and indicators of success. So sometimes they have those conversations with education managers. So, next slide, please. And then these are some pictures about what happens in the classroom. And lots of guest speakers come in and they do lots of hands-on competence-based learning. So Heidi, I'll let you talk about these pictures because I don't know the pieces here.
Well, it's Gordon Dick and he's there with the kids and they're also doing print, what's that called? Print screening when they do their t-shirts. So Aaron is quite the artist and he's the teacher, Aaron Lambert, and he has some of the kids creating their own designs and making their t-shirts, and we have them set up within the school for certain things. So it's pretty cool. Kids love that, especially because they can design.
70.
Yes, right?
It was awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, just different things that they've done and places they've been. I think that's just them. I'm sure if they're just out for a walk, they do a lot of work with PE. That can sometimes be a barrier for our students. And so that's one of the courses that they make sure that they're available to support kids with. Sometimes students do not like to be just in that PE space. And so they need the other options. So yeah, going out and about in community is a good way to get some exercise. They went up to the mountain this year and then they had their opportunity to do that play wild. What's it? Wild play. Yeah. Play wild. I've actually done that. So with my kids, it's awesome. It's really fun.
Sign me up.
Mountain again. Yeah. Show that other pictures. So anyway, they were in gymnastics. Lots of great things for them to be doing. Kids also really need that movement piece, and they also need that connection to their culture. And it's just really nice that they've had the opportunity to do that with lots of support from our ISWs as well in our building. Door decorating.
Where is that on my left?
Universe. But
Yeah, the green roof.
Oh, right.
I figured it out and I was like, I don't
Have
know.
you seen it? Yes, why? It's probably in your brain.
Karen gave these all, I think, to us. Yeah, opportunities to get out of the classroom, which I think is really, really important for lots of students and especially some of our youth that just don't have the opportunity to utilize some of our community's services, and just needing that break. Sometimes academics can be second.
It's too true.
It's great. Yeah, just stay.
Thank you. Yep. Exciting.
Thank you so much. Some of us had the opportunity to go up and meet with Erin and meet with some of the students in the bridge program. And we love the screen printing. Like that was so clever and so smart for them to do. It just makes sense, right? It's tangible, it's real. One of the questions, you had mentioned that some of them have individual plans. Are these students on IEPs? Any of the students, some of them?
Yep,
Okay.
we're talking about academics. Some of our students need a little bit more foundational skills.
Right.
Maybe they're working at a different level than the other student beside them. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah, there's a couple kids, and we have one of our ISTs who is the case manager for all the kids in Bridge.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Trustee Craig?
Oh, thank you, Coach Chair. It's a small number that end up back in the mainstream at school. Those students that do end up in mainstream, how are you finding their success?
Actually, really, it's working out for most of the students who take the step. Some of them are a little bit nervous. It takes a little bit. So we start with things like electives, making sure that they have the support to get to their electives, they're comfortable getting there, and they're happy to be there. And so the kids that are in our Bridge program, our grade 8s right now, love PE. And so they're doing PE outside of Bridge, and they're doing their academics in the Bridge classroom. We have a student right now who's been with Erin and Arlene since the beginning and has had a lot of growth and is looking forward to doing mainstream in her next year and would love to come back and be a TA so that she can be, a little bit of a leader and show some of the kids who are younger what's what in the classroom. And she's pretty excited to do that. So she's a success story. And we also have another student who had incredible trauma and was not actually going to school before they came to our building and before they went to Bridge. And they are excited and thrilled to be leaving Bridge, going into their classes, and so well. But it's been 2 years, of connection with Erin for him to actually have the confidence.
But even still, 2 years is a short period of time, so that's really made a difference.
It's huge for him. Yes, huge. So we have another student in there right now who is selective mutism, and Erin is actually teaching him to read, and he's talking and he's reading and he's having conversations. And it literally started with a game of Uno.
You knows magic.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Trustee Orr?
Thank you, through you, Chair. And I'm not sure, maybe this is for Director Bennett. I was just wondering, I love the Bridge program. Like I said, when we went for ADSS to ADSS and did the tour and we saw the Bridge program, I loved it. And I was wondering if this was something that is needed at USS, or have we thought about putting something like the Bridges program over there to help transitioning students on the coast? Thank you.
Chair, I think at this point in time, we've supported USS with individual student needs that were struggling. I don't think we've had the same number come through in cohorts that may have warranted like a full independent class. However, that conversation is always open for us to talk with administrators about cohorts coming into and needs that change in a building. And so I think when we look at USS, I think they're about the highest, enrolled student body right now, but since I've been here, like they've got a large number of students than when I first got here. So, conversations are open. We haven't deemed that as being a need at this point, but that can change, right? So sure. Appreciate the comment.
Yeah, thank you, Director Bennett.
That's Susan.
Thank you to Chair, to Director Bennett and Vice Principal Coleman. Great work. Thank you so much. And thanks for all this data, because I was and all the information helped me actually understand better what the purpose is and how, so thank you. I just I have a question just to clarify my understanding.
Sure.
when you talked about what our next step for students moving out of bridge program, so I'm always doing math stuff and trying to really get context. So when I look at all those numbers, it's like 60% of the students. So the other 40-ish, are they not returning to school? Or are they just are they staying in the program? Or I just didn't quite understand where everyone is. Like,
Sorry, I'm gonna go to the slide. you're looking
I
at.
don't know what page it was. It's 4, I think, of the slides. I think it's 4 or 5.
Slide over because it's up. Okay. So I've got that slide, or slide number 4, has like the 8% phones, they've moved into mainstream.
Yeah,
Is it me?
that's the slide.
I think probably, you mean why this hasn't added up to 100%? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, kind of like, I'm
That's
just
a good
curious
question.
what it all means.
Well, I think we want to track where kids are. I think it's fair. There could be kids that have moved away, but I think we're not tracking those pieces. We're tracking kids that are in Bridge specifically, and then kind of where they go. But if they move out of district, then we lose that tracking, I guess. And so we could probably go back and figure out, like, specifically to make it add up to the total number, if that's what you're looking for. I think, we have kids that will go to mainstream and then go to 8. So they might go to mainstream for grade 10, for part of grade 10, and then they're on to 8. And so that might be where we're losing that accuracy in numbers. Yeah. And there will be kids that probably aren't coming to school. That's a fair, yeah, I just don't have that number.
And and I'm seeing noise, so that kind of,
Some of the reason why we have that outreach piece, right, is because we are noticing that there are some families who are really just struggling to get their students, their children to our building. And so keep trying, but that's part of the statistics.
Through the chair, just to follow up. And so I think that that is a number we probably should get a more clear picture on. Because I think, as we talk about attendance as being an issue across the province, and we're no different in this district, that would say to me that we need this other kinds of service or intervention that responds to that. And I know that FIT has been, that place for us where kids just are completely disengaged. And we don't have that number in here, but Heidi and I both know that some of our students will completely disengage with school, and then that's where FIT picks them up. And so they're not really anywhere. So, so I think that that's probably a good focus for us to make sure we know exactly where those kids are going, because you're right, there's probably a number there that we're not counting. Yeah, fair enough.
thank you. I was just gonna ask another follow-up. When you spoke about the 8s and 9s being split, can I just ask what the intention there, or what the outcome you're looking at? Why is that? What's the plan for?
So we're looking at it a little bit differently this year because we do only have that one FTE that goes to our one teacher. So we want to really focus on the students and connect them to our building with the 8s for sure. We want to be able to bring them in and create this cohort that's connected with building them into the Bridge program. And so Erin thought it might be really great to just keep them together. And the fact that the 9s, then some of them already have had the Bridge experience. So they'll be looking for their electives and be happy to sort of branch out a little bit. So they'll be also on their own, with a couple of 10s who are still feeling a little bit, just needing that Bridge hug for a little bit longer. And so they're there in the afternoon. So it was mainly about building that cohort in the morning, and just with the one teacher, he thought that might be better.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions? Harley?
Yes. Is it possible to get the PowerPoint for this? Okay, yeah, that would help. I'm looking at the information, the statistics, and I was sitting here and I recall preteen, teen back in the 60s, the same problems were happening. It was a different time, and I think there were different social economic factors in place then. There were some of the same challenges with family income and other family factors. However, I think that some of the reasons that some of the students ended up in alternate programs were there was a lot of work available at that time. A teenager could, with the driver's license, could get a job in the mill and drive carriers to haul lumber on and get paid top dollar. And you didn't need an education for a lot of the blue collar trade, the red seal trades as a machinist, welder, et cetera. So it was a different reason for students ending up there. Today, I don't really want to touch on what the reasons are, but I know there's a change and there's a problem working through society. I guess the other thing is, all things being equal, similar problems existing in the past. I remember in the 60s, students were referred to, like maybe using the wrong terminology, but to an occupational based program, education, which meant a lower level of education to get into perhaps lower level training of unskilled labor or something of that like. And I still remember the term that was used for some of the students by themselves too, were referred to themselves as octards. And some people who have been around me may remember that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that till just now. But different time, some of the similar situations leading to students being moved away from mainstream education. And some of the first things that came up to my mind, and I'm not looking for answers here right now. I'll find some other things to ask when I see the PowerPoint. But what is asked of the student? Are they willingly going into this, or do they get encouraged to get deferred to it? And if a student is actually going to be transitioning from mainstream public school to one of these programs, do you have a discussion with the parent so that they're understanding the situation with their children? And other things. I was really happy to see Gordon Dick on there. And for me, I think it would be helpful, whether it's PowerPoints or information like this, to identify what tribal ancestry the person has and what their craft, their trade is. Gordon Dick is a Tsisha member. He's classed as a master carver. He's sought out, he gets paid very well for the work that he does. And I was afraid that he wasn't doing things to support and donate time to the education system. I'm really happy to hear that and see that. I think for me, those are things that will help, because I'm looking at, okay, if it was similar in the past and we're dealing with this now, I'm trying to think, what can we do to make this a little bit different or better in the future? And every time I look at statistics like this, First Nations and Indigenous people are always overrepresented in the troubled category. And this past few weeks, I've been asked if I could be a presenter with something at the school district, and I hadn't given an answer. And I hadn't given an answer because initially what I offered as potential workshop material was historical, legislative, and other reasons that show why we have the situations we do today. And what I see here is we're looking at the situations today, overrepresentation, high statistics. And what I see for workshops and the presentations that are going to take place, it's things that, okay, we want to do things to increase the educational statistics for Indigenous people. I don't see information on why are we still here after decades of doing work with education. And that's the reason that I'm looking at some different approaches with what I see, because since then, we have Aboriginal Head Start, which is an international educational program that works. It's, to me, like Montessori plus, and the plus being language, culture, family, diet, and a wide range of other things. The 6 principles of Aboriginal Head Start. So we're having opportunities to have different methods to get children ready for school, and more push to have Indigenous content, language, and other things. There's still challenges with the success rates. And even with graduation, I didn't really understand the difference between Dogwood and Evergreen. And I know even in a place like School District 61, where they've had an Indigenous education division for 42 plus years, they're still struggling with some of the same challenges we have here, facing some of the same goals that they're trying to attain that I would like to see us do here. So like I said, I don't really need answers today, if I can get the PowerPoint, I'd be happy to exchange some information. And I'd just like to do something to contribute to us working towards a place where we can start working our way away from this in the decades to come. So that's all. I think what I had is more of a comment than anything else.
Can I ask just some quick clarification question? You commented about making note of trade specialty and you said tribal ancestry. Is that for the students or for the presenters or both?
If you got Gordon Dick there, it would be good to say Sisha, Master Carver.
Oh.
That's what I'm talking about, because
Okay.
again, when you're looking at things like this, whether you're Indigenous or not, it helps to know where are they from and
Yeah.
what is their specialty. That's all that I.
I was gonna say, I think the school collects a lot of information about students, including that. But I don't know about the presenters, because that's a fair request. So we'll-
Yeah, and any work I do in Indian country, we still talk like that. It's standard.
Sure. Okay.
What's your tribal ancestry?
Yeah.
What family do you come from, and things like that. And
Okay.
I think that other Indigenous stakeholders would agree with that.
Sure, thank you. I don't know that, but we'll get that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harley.
Good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Without any questions, we're going to move on. We have a few more presenters here. Heidi and Michelle, again, I'll say you're welcome. We would love to have you. Are you backing up already, Heidi?
I am running back to school. I left lots of stuff to do on my desk.
We appreciate your time.
So appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Moving on to 7.3, early literacy with Vice Principal of Learning and Innovation and Literacy, Stephanie Spring.
Hello. Paula has my PowerPoint. Paula's gonna try. Did it work? Um, 1 minute. Sorry, the email is taking a long time to load before the meeting here. The
Big data files, PowerPoints with images or big files.
So I'm here today to give you an update on the Ministry Literacy Supports Initiative and what the work that we've been doing this year. The aim of this initiative is to strengthen foundational literacy skills for all students. And one part of this initiative is also to implement early literacy screening in all K-3 classrooms in the province. So that's sort of a multi-year process. And so I will let you know where we're at with that right now. Next slide, Paula. Thank you. So this fall, we started out with implementing the use of a literacy screening tool in kindergarten classrooms. The ministry provided us with some options that we could choose. So we have a small district. We have 18 kindergarten teachers. So I was able to go around and speak individually with all of them in the fall and share information about our different options. And then we worked together to select the screener that we thought would be best for us to use. So we are using a screening tool called Acadian Screening. So literacy screeners they're meant to be like a quick snapshot to get a sense of where students are at with their literacy skills. They're brief, they're standardized tests. But what we're really trying to do with those is identify students that are at risk for future reading difficulties. So they're predictive of future reading difficulties. So we're starting right in the fall of kindergarten. In kindergarten, it's, letter naming at the beginning of the year. And can you listen to a word and identify the first sound that you hear in the word? And then the skills progress up to grade 3 with different tasks on like phonemic awareness, phonics and their ability to decode words, reading fluency and comprehension tasks. So a screener takes about 5 to 10 minutes per student to do. So working with the kindergarten teachers this year, we had 2 professional development sessions together, one in the fall, where we walked through how to actually use the screener in our classroom. And it was the first time teachers were using it, so they went away pretty curious and they really like the idea of having a consistent approach in the province and that teachers can all talk about the same thing with each other. And then they just went out and used them for the first time in the fall. And then we met again in February and we really looked at how did that go? How was the process? And what did you notice? There's 3 points in the year that you do screening: beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. And so the middle of the year screening is optional, but about half of the teachers did do that. So a lot of them are really being reflective about what they noticed from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. And a lot of them are trying different things in their classroom. I'm getting emails from kindergarten teachers like, hey, I tried this and here's what I'm noticing. So we're really just trying to look at the really important part of this, which is what do we do with our screening results to move students forward? Throughout the month of May, starting this week, I'm going to be having meetings with teachers in grade 1 to 3, so all teachers in those grades. And this meeting is just going to be about how to use the screener, because in the fall, in September, all K-3 teachers in our district, including French immersion, will be using the screening tools in their classroom. And then the big part of our focus next year is going to be how do we move students forward? So right now I'm working with one of the kindergarten teachers where we took a look at her mid-year results and we sort of identified which students were having a hard time with the very basic kindergarten skills of phonemic awareness and first sound fluency. And we're doing a little pilot project together where I'm going in 2 to 3 mornings a week and we're doing a little intervention in the classroom. It's about 8 minutes, small groups of students. We're seeing it's 3 weeks in and we're seeing some little progress in that. So we're hoping that will continue. Okay, next slide, Paula. Another part of the Literacy Supports Initiative is to provide professional development opportunities for teachers and support staff. So we have been doing this in a variety of ways. We have after-school learning bursts that are focused on a variety of literacy topics. Often things, Sandra and I often lead those together, and they're usually focused on things that we see as trends or things that teachers keep asking us about, questions that they have, things that they want support with. So a variety of things like comprehension strategies, how to implement small group instruction in your classroom, how to help a diverse range of needs in your classroom, how to support middle year students. We've also had a few literacy workshops for support staff this year, our educational assistants, youth care workers, and Indigenous support workers. So we've had 2, one in the fall on reading. So we sort of went through like 5 different components of reading, and we sent them away with a toolkit of different activities that they could use in a variety of ways with the students that they're working with. And then in February, we did a second workshop on writing and talked a lot about the writing continuum and how students develop their skills over time. And we also sent them away with like a little toolkit that they could use with their students. And then we've also had a learning series with Dr. Jen Kelly, author of Active Reading Classrooms. She has worked in our district for 4 days this year with elementary teachers. We just actually had her here yesterday and today. She was working with teachers, and she's been really focusing on like the connection between reading and writing. How do we use what we're learning in reading and apply it to writing? How to implement small group instruction in the classroom through literacy stations, and then just a variety of like activities that teachers can use to help their students with their foundational skills. Yesterday after school, she did a session on reading fluency and how things that we can do to help students become more fluent readers. Next slide. One of my big projects that I've been working on this year is the creation of a district primary literacy framework. My words got cut off there. So I really wanted this to be the collective ideas of all the primary teachers in our district. So I started back in November. I went and I had individual conversations with every K-3 teacher in the district. That took about 3 months to finish that, but I just recorded, I kind of asked, what would you like to see in a district primary literacy framework? What's important to you? And I just, a big list, and then I collated all the ideas. What came through was that, they wanted it to be grounded in evidence-based practices that were really going to help strengthen the foundational literacy skills of our students. They also really wanted it to be something that they could reference for school and classroom planning and instruction. And it was important to me that the framework aligns with our district operational and strategic plan goals. So I had a session after school at the end of February where I invited teachers to come, and we looked at literacy frameworks from many districts around the island and the province and sort of identified, well, what do we like about each of those? What's something we were wondering about? We started to really get a list of what we were hoping that our framework would look like. So right now the draft is ready to go out for consultation. So there's like one of the sample pages there on culturally responsive literacy. And I had the help of Shelley Frank and Michelle Poline in putting this portion of this together. So now it will be shared out with teachers, the IEC, DPAC, PVPA, and all of our partner groups for feedback and consultation in the coming couple months.
Didn't want to interrupt you as you maybe using this as a guide. I just need to stop sharing for a moment and see. It seems to be stuck for all.
That's okay.
On the first slide. So
I have it in front of me too.
just going to stop sharing and reshare it. For people online, are you able to see that slide? Yeah, you have a thumbs up. Sorry, Stephanie.
That's it. Another project that I've been working on alongside Sandra and Lenora Milliken, our district Indigenous literacy and numeracy resource teacher, is we're working on updating our district common writing rubrics that we use. We're really focusing on the grade 1 to 4 rubric now. The ministry released some English language arts learning progressions at the end of last school year that really broke down all of the literacy skills that students need. It was sort of like a supplement to the curriculum, provided some more clarity on what exactly we need to be doing at each grade. So we have been, over the past few months, we've been drafting up some new rubrics based on the learning progressions of the curriculum and the ministry reporting order. And we had a collaborative feedback session after school on April 29th. We had a few teachers come and provide some input. And then we're going to send it out to all primary teachers at the beginning of June and gather some more feedback and hopefully see if some people can try them out and see how it goes. And then as a part of this, and Jen Kelly's work in our district about the strong connection between reading and writing, teachers really wanted to see a writing focus in the district literacy framework as well. So there's just sort of a sample page from that part of the framework. And next slide. And then one more component of the Literacy Supports Initiative is providing information for parents and caregivers. So far, this has been done with information in the district newsletter. There's been a series of monthly infographics that I've been sharing out to principals, post on school websites or to share out in their newsletters. I've also been sharing them with different partner groups. So I've been going to like Ready, Set, Learn and providing them for families, or K-Days events and providing them to incoming kindergarten parents. This is the most recent one. I've shared that out with teacher librarians. They're sharing that out with their students and families. And then next year, I'm really hoping to spend a lot more time on this part of the initiative. I'm hoping to create a package that teachers can provide to families as they go through screening. So what exactly can you do to help support your students at home in each of those areas? And I would like to consult more with our partner groups on what they would find helpful as far as information going out to parents and caregivers. Questions? Thank you, Sarah. Questions? Let's use it.
Thank you, the chair, to district principal, sorry, vice principal. Oh, there's principal, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Great work. I love reading this stuff, and it's so intentional, and 98% participation when you were doing the literacy framework. Like, that's just makes my heart sing, because that means, it seems to me to mean that educators are really embracing this and wanting to do this, and participation. Yeah, wonderful. Where's my question? Sorry. That you're gonna. Sorry, I just have to comment because I think it's so great. I just want to point out some of the things. The district, you've submitted to the ministry to participate in the pilot and field testing phase. It's got to read my, so that sounds cool. And that, just the fact that you want to do that is just, again, strengthens my warm heart to see all the great work. Paper. So you mentioned writing, I think you, I'm an educator, the idea of including writing more in the literacy knowledge. When I was in the schools, and I know that it's intentional, that we're using less paper and so on, and we're using whiteboards and other things. And I, as someone I'm totally into using less, but I do use paper. And I find it helps me when I'm to learn and to look back. With a whiteboard, you can't look back once you erase it. So I was wondering, and writing, like, you can't look at your writing and improve. So I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not suggesting that if it's a district initiative to reduce paper, I understand, but is it actually working to help our students improve? Because that's our main goal, and we can find ways to be environmentally friendly and sure.
We were actually just talking about this quite a bit with Jen Kelly over the last couple of days, and we talked a lot about how individual students are going to need individual things. And something that I saw in both of the classrooms that we were in over the last couple of days were teachers raising whiteboards for especially helping kids with spelling. So like they can practice the word on the whiteboard and then transfer it to their paper, because teachers are finding that students don't want to make a mistake. And so they're trying to get them to try and then have that sort of space where they can erase. It's not permanent, and then transfer their work. Or they want to make some edits or revisions, but they don't want to do that on their work all the time either. So I've been seeing whiteboards used in that way. And then we were just talking about like how we could use whiteboards to like maybe take a picture of what they're doing to save that as sort of a assessment piece that we could use in the classroom. But I think there is a variety of paper and non-paper tools being used. Some students really do well with paper tasks.
Go ahead, I can't find it.
Hartley, the question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's interesting seeing some of the methods that you use here, and they're all great. And I was sitting here and I thought, what did I do to help my son understand and increase his vocabulary to develop an interest in reading sentences that were beyond his chronological years? And I was a single parent raising a son, so the relationship between father and son is much different than the relationship between mother and daughter. I know that, and that's pretty standard. So what I would do is write down some words that he didn't understand. And it was pretty unconventional. I mean, I'm not even going to say the words that I was writing down here, but he'd ask me, well, what does that mean? I said, well, you're going to have to use your dictionary. And I thought I'll have to use an unconventional way to get him to use his dictionary. So he had this list and he'd be at home doing his homework. And every once in a while I'd hear him just break out into hysterical laughter because I thought, okay, he's using his dictionary. and one other thing that happened in the elementary school, just after this, unconventional way of us helping increase his vocabulary, the principal could see that students were also challenged with the same reading problems. And what he did is he made a statement: if every student reads this many books and it's confirmed by your parents, and it was a massive amount of students and books that had to be read, he said, if you do this, I will get up on the school and I will sing Louie Louie in front of the TV station, the radio station, everybody. And I didn't understand why my son was so interested in reading books. And then he told me, I said, oh, really? And it really made a difference because the kids saw that as a real fun personal challenge. He got the students to meet the goal, and he did live up to his promise. It was on Como King View Station, this principal on top of the store, the mic singing Louie Louie. And the kids loved it. So, I think if students' parents can also be part of finding solutions that are fun and unconventional, maybe that's a way to go too. But I look back at that and I realized, well, yeah, I did some pretty strange stuff to help him increase his vocabulary, but it helped. And then a principal doing something unconventional helps too. But, this is all good, important work. And I think, K to 12, a lot of different people are going to have challenges with that. And I mean, even professionally, I see people struggling with some of the terminology. Again, good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. And I just, I appreciate that because we don't want to lose the joy of reading and the joy of literacy. And if it takes some incentives and, those infographics, that's why they're sort of fun. Like it's either you're not just like loaded with, must do educational, they're supposed to be fun so that families can see that there's a lot of ways that things are doing our literacy. And there's a lot of fun ways that you could try to engage your learners in those things too.
One of the things I remember in junior high school at A.W. Neal, one of the teachers I had allowed the students to choose between 2 or 3 different books that were there. And it made a big difference because the girls went in one direction, the boys went in another. And I remember us guys chose to read the book Shane about a gunslinger. And I can't remember what the girls chose to read, but giving some choices helps too. It makes them feel like, oh yeah, I got a choice in this, and then it's more incentive.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, Stephanie. Sandra, that's. Need to go? That's okay. That's okay. Thank you. We're going to move on. Stephanie, do you want to?
I also have to leave.
Okay, that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything that you're doing. Appreciate it. We're going to move down to 7.4, Enhanced School District Report, Assistant Superintendent James Messenger.
Well, they're all leaving, so they. Which was to say, what a great, I'm
Yes.
very fortunate to work with a great team. And,
Maybe if we yell it loud enough.
what a great segue into my presentation
Mhm.
because we have great work from our learning services team and working with our school staff to operationalize our operational plan and to improve student achievement, which is what we're about and what our Enhancing Student Learning Report is about. We are at the stage of our continuous improvement cycle where we're reviewing and updating our plan. So you've heard a little bit about what we've done this year. And you've heard throughout the year how we're doing in terms of data updates. And now we're at the stage of what are some of those tweaks and changes we're going to make. And I think Paula PowerPoint. I've got a very
Paula's
a very detailed with lots of hyperlinks information sheet in the agenda package. I just wanted to highlight a few things and then really leave the bulk of the time for questions that you may have. So just the first point, wanting to highlight that just some cautions around the data, that if you look at different pieces of data, depending on which you might see a percentage point difference here or there, and to not get too hung up on the little differences. Sometimes it's differences in methodology, or they've removed students that they now know have enrolled in another school and things of that nature. But to look at some of the big trends. Next slide. And I think it's important to highlight that we get different releases of data and information available to us throughout the year. And that's why throughout the year with our education committee or our Indigenous Education Council, we share different pieces of information. So if you're wondering, you know, why do we talk about, as an example, it might seem weird that we're talking about graduation rates from the last year in February, but that's when that data has been cleaned up and released, and we can say with confidence, this is where our graduation rate for the district was. So that's the data release cycle. And then I wanted to highlight a few key pieces of data. We talked about this when earlier this year, but just celebrating our 5-year completion and improved graduation rates through a lot of focused work, and that our graduation rates for our different priority populations are showing an improving trend. And I think this is a result of a lot of focused work. The next slide, and again, we can come back to this. Lots to celebrate in terms of our graduation rate, lots to celebrate in terms of what our students are saying, in how they're feeling in school, how they feel about school being a safe and welcoming place. One of the key areas that still needs improvement is improving our rate of proficiency with literacy and numeracy. And you can see that in our academic achievement data. And we talked about some of our strategies for improving that earlier this meeting. But so just, again, I think the separate lines from the different populations allow you to also see that systemic inequities persist in our system and demand our attention. So through these quickly. So that was previously grade 4 literacy, grade 4 numeracy. Next slide. Grade 7 literacy. Second numeracy. Yeah, our grade 10 literacy, and highlight here our grade 10 assessments. When you tell a grade 10 that an assessment doesn't count for marks, the effort decreases dramatically. And our secondary administrators will tell you this. We have improved our participation rate in our grade 10 literacy and numeracy assessments. But obviously our performance results are not what we would expect or want them to be. Slide, I think. And the next one. Another thing we've talked about with our different partner groups and certainly have highlighted in our data is our attendance is a concern. This is not unique to our district, but it is something we're seeing. And one of the barriers we hear often when talking to students and families about what are barriers for the academic success. It's getting them to school regularly. And improve. Harley, you mentioned this earlier, but just adult dogwood versus dogwood evergreen rate and evergreen. We've done a lot of focused work to make sure There will always be students that graduate on the adult dogwood path, but making sure that those students are and families are choosing that pathway and it's the right pathway for them. And then, as I mentioned, those systemic inequities that persist in our system. And that's really it for the data highlight. Oh, no, I was wrong. This would have maybe been better earlier in the presentation when we were talking about strengths, but and we just got our MDI data. I think Principal Stone is still online. Our schools, despite our community risk factors, do an amazing job of creating warm, welcoming, and safe places. Of course, we want that to be 100%, but I'll highlight that our performance in terms of social emotional well-being is at, in most cases, the provincial average or above. And certainly when you look at our community risk factors that are high. And I highlight Principal Stone because she was celebrating with me. The Middle Years Development Index surveys were just released, and her grade 4 students, 100% of her grade 4 students could say, I can identify 2 or more adults who care about me and our schools at school.
So great.
There's our schools are doing a good job.
Good job, yeah.
Yeah. And now I think we can say the data part's done or the PowerPoint part's done, and we'll open up to questions or comments.
Your data was just so great, James.
Yes.
Spot on. We're good for questions, or is there? No.
Okay, I'll ask some questions. We have time. Oh, yeah. Thank you, through the chair.
We may have to eat into all this.
Yeah, what an opportunity. Thank you, assistants. It's great stuff to read, and like you said, I totally agree with what you're saying, staff. To implement our strat plan and these improvements in literacy and numeracy, it's all this intentional, focused work is paying off. And one of those graphs, I can't remember which one you were saying, how some of our numbers aren't good or still not great. I can't remember that, but I would notice specifically though that our the groups that were mandated, but the ministry are focused groups. Sorry, I know who they are, but I can't find the word that
Priority population.
Thank you. Those had all gone up on that same graph. So all that intentional work and that, the bridge program, the AFAB learning, anyways, I just want to say that there was more good stuff that you didn't even highlight that I know. That's because I see all you guys working really hard. Okay, specific questions. In your package, you talk about the enhancing student learning report work plan. And I was just wondering, where do we need to make, you're doing the review and then possible adjustment. So what are the adjustments you're thinking that we might be looking at? I know we've been talking about an absenteeism initiative, but if there's something else.
Yeah, so Superintendent Claver is going to give a really detailed update of our operational plan at our June public board meeting. I think, again, we're seeing and getting feedback that a lot of our strategies we're seeing improvement. Of course, their adjustments are always needed and made. And so one of the things that we are hearing in our consultation is, what are we doing about attendance? And we're hearing that across the board and from different partner groups. So I anticipate that an initiative around attendance will be in our operational plan. And obviously, we'll be continuing our work on literacy and numeracy. And so what are the specific strategies with that? I really think, again, we're trending in the right way, and I don't want to presume this, but in our final consultations here at the end of the year, I think it'll be adjustments to our current strategies. Where are we seeing the biggest impact? and where might we further tweak. That answers your question or not.
That's, you're working, I know you're always working on it. That may have been an unfair question.
No, I think it's a great one. Attendance is one we're hearing in consultation, continuing to move forward with our literacy initiative. And I think Vice Principal Spring did a good job of sort of saying, where are we at? Where are we heading? And a lot of our work around one of the priority populations we're seeing is maybe needing to articulate our strategies more clearly, but also underperforming is our students with unique or diverse abilities. And so our Universal Design for Learning initiative and planning for student success and our secondary professional learning community, making learning accessible for all learners. Again, the feedback we've gotten so far is we are seeing improvement. And how do we widen that impact to more classrooms, to more students? We hear about the success of Bridges. We've heard about the success of land-based learning. If those environments are accessible and showing success for all students, how can we make other learning environments more?
Ask that question? Sure. Thank you. Thank you. The other one was need for continued focus and improvement in academic achievement, particularly increasing the proportion of students meeting or exceeding provincial proficiency expectations. Curious at what some of the ideas are, if you're still working on that, I understand. And then in conjunction with that, I was thinking that like the grade, I believe, I remember correctly, there's like a grade 8 initiative to screen them as well and find out where they're at and provide supports or something like that. I might not be remembering correctly, but that sounded really good to me, to catch them again and to help them. Is that one of the methods to get that going?
We track all our students, and so we track all grade levels and all students, and make plans to catch them when they're falling. I'm not familiar with any specific mention of a grade 8 initiative, but I think in terms of literacy, we heard it from Vice Principal Spring, and talked about attendance, and then numeracy. I anticipate we've had Carol Fullerton in our district for a number of years. Some of the feedback we're hearing now is that what are some new initiatives that we're doing around literacy? I anticipate we may see a focused effort on how can UDL and how can our secondary PLC maybe be focused energy there in terms of numeracy and numeracy improvement. So I see we will obviously have a numeracy goal, but perhaps our strategy could be adjusted.
Can you remind me what PLC is?
Professional learning.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Some questions? Oh, there she is. Right in the center. I was looking for her in the boxes. There you are, Trustee Orr.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, to Mr. Messenger, I just wanted to say I appreciate the district's commitment to transparency. I feel like we're regularly sharing data updates, or you are sharing regular data updates with the Education Committee, Indigenous Education Council, DPAC, and school administration throughout the year demonstrates a genuine culture of openness and shared accountability. And reading through this report, and I know there's still lots of work to do, but I feel like we've made some good strides. Seeing the gap, I mean, there is still a gap, but it's closing, and I appreciate the district's hard work. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Orr. That's great. So next we have close on. We're going to close there. We have no correspondence. And our next meeting has not yet been determined, but it will not be in this school year. We will adjourn the meeting at, I'm going to say 5:14. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.